Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us today at the Rutgers Private Equity and Employee Ownership Shared Symposium. I'm Graham Thomas. I work with KKR on our Capstone team, which is our operations team here at KKR. Spent about 5 years at KKR, and I've had the privilege to spend the last year at KKR fully dedicated and focused on rolling out our shared ownership programs across the portfolio and helping our portfolio companies implement those. Today, I have the honor to be joined by Dave Bangert, who's one of the CEOs who worked with one of our portfolio companies and actually completed the process with a sale last year. So Dave, I'll let you introduce yourself now.
Thanks, Graham. And good morning to everyone. Great to be with you via video and look forward to our discussion here today. As Graham said, my name is Dave Bangert, and I'm fortunate to be the CEO at C.H.I. Overhead Doors. I joined the company in 2016, shortly after KKR made their investment. And as Graham mentioned, we completed the sale of C.H.I. to Nucor in June of 2022. We're certainly proud and excited of the work that all the teammates across C.H.I. Did throughout our time in the ownership program, and excited to share not only that journey with you, but how we look to perpetuate it today in the ongoing operations of C.H.I. As part of Nucor Corporation. So look forward to the conversation, Graham.
You too.
Great. Well, maybe I'll start, if you don't mind, Graham, and ask you. I've been a bit disconnected from the KKR side of things, obviously, since the transaction, but I've heard and read a lot that you guys have been busy with the program and rolling things out. Tell me a little bit about what y'all been up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start, we've had a huge acceleration of these programs at KKR. As you know, we started experimenting with shared ownership in the industrials portfolio about 12 years ago. We did about 5 or 6 implementations of this over the course of a decade. And now in the last 30 months, we've rolled out 30 new shared ownership programs in KKR portfolio companies. Along with that, we've been dramatically expanding where we're implementing these. So we've had our first implementation in Europe this year. We had our first exit in the Asia Pacific region with a company in Australia. We had our first media exit with RB Media earlier this year, our first global impact exit. We're working on our first infrastructure and growth fund launches. So we're now implementing these across multiple industries, multiple strategies, and multiple geographies, which is really exciting. In tandem with that expansion, we're doing a lot more to resource ourselves internally for our portfolio companies. So we've created a human capital center within KKR, of which I'm part of. And our goal is to help unlock the human capital potential of our portfolio company employees in a way that gives us a competitive advantage. Now, the ownership program is the cornerstone of that, but we actually take a more expansive view than just the ownership. So we have a pillar of the program that's really focused on finding inclusive and empowering leaders like yourself, both in how we select them and how we onboard them and work with the management teams to gain alignment. We have a pillar that's focused on structuring these shared ownership programs, a pillar that's focused on creating a strong engagement and culture program within our portfolio companies, pillar that's focused on employee well-being. And we think about that broadly from personal financial well-being, physical well-being, mental well-being. And that's really aimed at helping our employees have the capacity and the bandwidth to show up and to be engaged and to think and act like owners. It's also our philosophy that when we take care of the people, it breeds loyalty, that they're going to show up and they're going to want to work hard for their companies. The final pillar is around having a diverse and inclusive environment, which goes hand in hand with all of our efforts around engagement and employee well-being as well. So that's the approach we're taking. Again, it's the ownership piece plus a lot of other things to support that. We've also partnered with Ownership Works, and they've really taken off in the last year. So they're a nonprofit dedicated to expanding shared ownership in the private equity space. They now have over 25 private equity partners that have committed to trying this model in at least 3 portfolio companies. So we're seeing a lot of momentum around this model in private equity, which is really exciting. But all of what we're doing at KKR was really made possible by the success of a couple CEOs who took these programs and ran with them and proved out the potential for these to be a win-win-win for investors and LPs, employees, and the management team, particularly when the equity is paired with a cultural shift that improves the operations of the business. So let's learn more from you and your story. And maybe to start, can you just describe a little bit about what is the program and how is it structured? Because the way that most of our portfolio companies have implemented employee ownership is quite a bit different from the traditional ESOP model that people often think about with employee ownership.
For sure. Yeah, the equity program that we had at CHI through the KKR Industrials team really had two ways that a teammate was an owner and had a stake in the business. We had a direct participant option, and for us, we had around 800 teammates, so we had about 250 plus that were direct participant options, and in that part of the program, and then we also had a general pool, and everybody was in one or the other in terms of that. And in the direct participant option, those teammates own shares of CHI. And in the general pool, there were shares allocated by KKR for the general pool. And then the proceeds of those shares, whether it was through any of the 4 dividends we had, as well as the final sale, those proceeds from the shares dedicated to the general pool filtered down to those teammates and were shared out that way. But we had 2 different vehicles by which teammates could participate.
Very cool. So take us back to the start of your journey with shared ownership at CHI. What was going on in the company and what was the initial reaction to people as you started to roll this out and learn how to use it effectively as a tool within the business?
For sure. When KKR made their investment in CHI and the program was rolled out, our team was at a different place, obviously, than where we ended up, but was at a place in terms of just coming off being sold. And KKR was actually the 4th private equity firm to own CHI. So the teammates there had seen multiple iterations. And in the transactions that had preceded ours with Nucor, all of those only involved a real small number of people, maybe 15, 20 people participated at the sale in a meaningful way. I think in several cases, the teammates on the floor and throughout the rest of the business might have seen $1,000 or $1,500 as a one-time check, but they weren't true owners in the business and participating. So one of the first things we encountered was just the challenge of helping people believe it was real, the challenge of helping people appreciate the program and that we were all in it together on the same terms with the same extra equity instrument underlying it. And so there's a big opportunity there, I think, relative to communication and rollout for anybody to think about in one of these programs. It's just really understanding where your team's at and how best to approach them. I think what we found over time, especially in those early years, was it was really important to not assume based on where somebody was at in the organization that they either understood or didn't understand, and really give them a chance to react to the program, see what questions they had, and then meet them where they were to help explain what it really meant to be an owner and how they could think and act like an owner in their daily work.
Yep. And we've seen that with a lot of our companies in terms of the importance of communication. And it often takes multiple tries to get it right. And you have to experiment a bit.
Yep. For sure.
So, one of our other learnings from implementing these programs is that effectively driving culture change requires a lot more than just handing out the equity. And I know you guys experienced that. So what are some of the main practices that CHI employed to complement the equity program and change really the day-to-day lived experience for employees? Because this is a long-term incentive that doesn't change the day-to-day experience unless you pair it with some of these other initiatives.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple of things I would say were kind of overall key themes, and then I can get into maybe some of the examples that went along with those. But first would be communication, and the second would be education. What we learned quickly, I talked earlier about meeting the team where they were. It was really true too with our communication and how you could help reach everybody, not only in terms of what the program was and how they related, but then once you're in and you're an owner in the business, right? How are we performing? Where do we need to focus? What's working? What's not? Where do we want to change? And all of that required layers of communication and different avenues to approach it. And then the other is education. Again, not only just around the program, but around all the things that go along with that. For example, if we're going to ask a team to care about networking capital, we have to make sure everybody really understands what networking capital is. Of course, the finance team does, right? They live that every day. Purchasing team gets it. But we need the teammates on the floor to understand it, right? And so we work through ways to help compare your life at home, right? The inventory you keep in your pantry as your inventory, and the bills you need to pay as your payables, and receivables being your paycheck and the way money came in, and help to try to create ways that people could appreciate the concept, in that case, net working capital, and then how we might apply it to what we were doing at CHI. I think the other side, as I mentioned, with communication really gets back to having different ways to reach out to people. So we started with an all hands meeting. I think a lot of businesses do those. We intentionally changed the name of it, though, from all hands or all associates to an owners meeting. And we use that each time, just even in the communication that, hey, we're going to have a meeting, to say, hey, we're having an owners meeting. And what's that mean? Well, that means everybody comes to this meeting. This meeting's for everybody. And we use that meeting then to go through the results, how we were doing that month, what was working from safety, quality, what we were hearing from customers, and where we needed to go. And so I think we'd start at that level, but then each of the departments within CHI would have their own meetings, and they would help cascade that message down, help reinforce what we talked about in an owners meeting. And so we use that forum of getting everybody together as a group, and then also meetings by department to help cascade, to give the teammates a chance to hear the message multiple ways, and also to make sure we were getting to everybody's questions. You know, as I said earlier, we had about 800 teammates. So when you get everybody together in an owners meeting, there's not a lot of Q&A that you can have, but when you have those smaller group meetings by department, you can really make sure we're able to answer questions and teammates understand what's going on. To do that, though, as a leadership team, right, we have to make sure every layer of the organization's aligned, understands the message, understands, how to communicate, what to communicate, and that we're learning together, as we go. So that was certainly a part of it, relative to the way we approach communication, and obviously over the whole period from 15 to 22, right? The forums in which we do that change. We always had an in-person meeting, but we didn't have a text messaging service, for example, when we started in 2016. But by 2020, we did, and that was one more way to communicate. At one point, I think in 2018 or 2019, we installed monitors throughout the offices and the factory, so we had another way to communicate. And then thinking about what languages do those need to be in for teammates, so that it's easier for them to get that message. And so there's a lot of layers to that. I think a lot of that is what companies are doing already in terms of even just communicating around things like benefit programs and that. But thinking about how we apply that to ownership program and thinking about how we help get that message out is really important.
Definitely.
So those were kind of the two key things. I guess, to Graham, to the other part of your question, and what you referenced earlier in terms of how KKR is moving it forward, we thought of the model, the ownership model, with kind of three key tenets. The first, obviously, being the ownership, but like you said, it's not just about handing out equity. And so for us, the second area was investing in the business, investing in the team, and then the third piece was community engagement. So with investing in the team, we committed $1 million of capital expenditures each year to whatever initiative had the most consensus across the organization, that we wanted to do. What we said was, hey, this is not new roll formers for the plant. This is not extra tools to do your work. If you need that stuff, we need to know about it, and we'll handle that separately, make sure you have it. This was, how do we make the environment that we all come to work in each day, where we each spend so much time away from our families, how do we make that better? So we air conditioned the plant. We have 1 million plus square feet in Arthur, Illinois, and HVAC people came in and said you couldn't do it, but with the help of KKR and Capstone and our teal team, we found a way to do it. And we actually installed some infrastructure, and then we rent compressors now that come in each year and help cool the plant down. So we've turned a plant that would easily be over 100 degrees in the summer and kept that ambient temperature under 80 now throughout, and has had a huge impact. We added break rooms that gave people a chance to get away, have a healthier snack, meal, whatever the case may be on a break time, and then just have a place to congregate. And we continue that today. We're actually in the process now. We built a health clinic as well while we were part of KKR. We've continued this now with locker rooms and some changes out in the parking area for everybody. So we continue to look for how we can invest to help make that environment better.
And have you involved employees in that process of deciding where you're going to invest?
Yeah, so we'll use those owners meetings to kind of share, hey, these are ideas that get talked about. I run a session with teammates every other week where we get together 6 to 10 people just for kind of an informal chat with some, donuts in the morning, or cookies in the afternoon kind of thing, but just to get people talking about, hey, how are things going and what do we need? And so we get a lot of ideas from that. And then once we aggregate all the ideas, we kind of ask each of our plants to talk about what they think would be best. And the one criteria that we do put on it is it needs to apply. It needs to have the chance to apply to everybody and needs to benefit as many teammates as possible. Sometimes we get requests for real specific things like a basketball court, which would be great for the teammates who love basketball,
Sure.
but not everybody does. So
Yeah.
that's the way we try to focus it, is how can we touch the most teammates, and how can we help create that and make that environment a little bit better.
And then you mentioned a third pillar around community engagement. What does that look like at
Right.
C.H.I?
So C.H.I, had 35 plus year history when KKR made their investment. And I think up to that point, C.H.I was really involved in the local community. We sit in a town called Arthur, Illinois, as I mentioned before. It's in central Illinois. It's an Amish town, about 2,000 folks. And so C.H.I have been very involved in the community fair and the 4th of July, Fall Fest, things like that. But we didn't have a real reach. And in the conversation with the KKR team, we got talking about how could we have a more national reach, but also how do we help tie it together to what's important within C.H.I. So the two things that we talked about and kind of came to fruition in talking with a bunch of different teammates as well was, one, how do we get our product involved? We believe the world's greatest garage doors. So how can we involve those? And then we have a really important, powerful, strong veteran group within C.H.I. Not only teammates who've served our country, but also those who have family members serving. And so KKR was able to introduce us to a group called Homes for Our Troops, which was ended up being a wonderful match for us. We're still involved with them today, whereby they provide mortgage-free homes to veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan war who've lost one or more limbs while serving our country. And those heroes return home, and they need an adapted environment to have their best life. Mm-hmm. And so this home has about 25 adaptations to it. They're beautiful. I've had a chance to visit a variety of them through the years, and each one of them has a C.H.I garage door. And very cool. It was really, it's exciting to be able to provide those doors. We get our dealers involved, the product gets involved, and that's wonderful. And then, we did that for a few years and got going, and then got the idea, well, what if we sponsored a whole house? And the KKR team on our board was so supportive. It was like instantly, yeah, we want to be a part of this too. And so the C.H.I team kind of rallied together with kind of great support collaboration from the board. And we ended up being the lead sponsor on 2 different homes during that time, which was really wonderful because we got to welcome those families to come visit us in Arthur. They got to meet our team, and team got to meet them and hear their story. And it's so powerful, and it just fills us all, I think, with a great deal of gratitude to those who served our country. So it's been wonderful for us. And like I said, we continue that today post the sale, because it's really important to the team. And we've got a great relationship with Homes for Our Troops now, thanks to that introduction KKR provided years ago. Yeah.
And I've seen those things really provide a lot of pride in the organization you work for on that, feel like an owner concept. If you're proud of the place you work for, you're going to feel more ownership.
Sure.
So over the course of the investment, then, with all these things you were doing around education and connectivity and workforce improvements, how did you start to see the ownership mindset impact the performance and the operations of the business? Because at the end of the day, in order for this program to pay out, you do need to create a lot of value over the course of the investment.
Yeah. Yeah, in a variety of fronts, you would see this. We saw this play out over time. There were some smaller things, like we opened a new facility in Terre Haute, Indiana, and the team there came up with the idea that over each of the entrances we hung signs that said not just C.H.I, but C.H.I Owner's Entrance. And they actually took the work shirts that we give everybody, and they wanted to put owner across the back of them. Well, then that spread, and Arthur wanted the same T-shirts, right? And so there were some little things like that where you could start to see it build. But I think there's some more tangible examples for sure that we would want to share. Part of what makes the C.H.I model unique is that we deliver the garage doors we make to our network of 2,200 dealers with a 65 or 70 truck drivers who are our teammates at C.H.I. And so those truck drivers have a vested interest, right? They were owners in the business, and they go out each week with a route to deliver their doors. They might have 5 to 15 stops, depending on what part of the country they're in and what time of year it is. And pretty quickly, they were coming back. There was one in particular who came back and said, you didn't give me the most efficient route. And CHI had been at this for years. We had software and all kinds of um, teammate experience in terms of planning routes, but he explained how in the route that was laid out for him that particular week, he went way out of his way. He got paid for it, but it wasn't the most optimal way to deliver the doors. And it didn't allow everything to get out as efficiently as it could to the dealers. And so we pretty quickly got a group of drivers together along with the planning team and came up with some ways to enhance that process. And now there's a real-time feedback loop. So you got the drivers out there supporting the planning team and helping think about how do we optimize these routes, not only to serve customers better, but obviously helps the business perform better. So that was a neat example. Another one comes in regards to scrap. Our doors are all made from steel, and so that's our largest cost by far is the steel that it takes to make the doors. So our roll forming department brings in coils of steel and in the roll forming and with the equipment there turns them into the panels, the shells that become the sections of your garage door or your dock door in a factory. And the team there, in thinking about scrap, and as we had some of these owners meetings and talked about, hey, how can we each play a role, got onto the topic of scrap. And they came up with a way to save a significant amount of each coil. They call the start of the coil the head and the end of it the tail.
Mhm.
And typically what happened was there, both at the start and the end, there was a significant amount of the coil that was sacrificed to scrap because of the roll forming process and the timing of it. Well, they sat down and took a week or so to come up with ways on how could we better utilize that. And they reduced the amount of heads and tail scrap by about 75%, which
Wow.
was really substantial when you consider it's our number one cost in terms of the P&L. So another great example there from the floor. We also, as we've talked before very publicly, made safety our top priority as part of KKR's ownership, both in the investments we made and in how we talked about the performance of the business at an owners meeting, at a board meeting, and everywhere in between. And we had a variety of great ideas relative to safety come from teammates. One that stands out in particular is our panels can get very heavy, and so there can be a lot of lifting on the floor to maneuver and position them. But several teammates got together and developed a set of what we'll call ergonomic slides, but ways to actually move the product around without having to physically lift it. To do that safely, to not impact the quality of the product. And so we've put a lot of those slides now and replicated it throughout the factory to really reduce the strain on the team and help to kind of spread that culture. So that's just 3 of them. There's a whole bunch, but I think what's so exciting about that is that they really come from the ground level, and as everybody knows, that's where the best ideas reside, not in conference rooms and spreadsheets, but with the teammates doing the work.
Absolutely. And the accumulation of those little actions and ideas can really build into something big.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of the CHI story is,
Yeah.
it's hard to say, hey, there was one gigantic thing. No, it was a whole lot of little things that really built on one another that the team came up with and that the
Yeah.
team, truly developed and earned. And
Very cool. So another learning we've had is that this is hard. We're introducing something new like equity ownership to hourly workers. So what are some of the biggest challenges you guys faced while you were doing this?
yeah, there are a bunch. And I think, like we hear in a lot of different aspects of business and life for that matter, right? Sometimes the challenges we learn more from, or we can learn more from if we embrace them. I mentioned earlier that when we rolled the program out, it was you had to meet teammates where they were and how real this program really was for a lot of folks who'd lived through 3 prior equity owners and not really seen anything tangible. So there was a need to get there. And obviously we talked about the communication, the education, that's a huge part of it. It was also significant that we were able to have 4 dividends over the whole period. And the first one was in May of 2017. So it was pretty quick. And using that dividend not only to communicate how the dividend was generated, how everyone's efforts contribute to it and made it possible, but also for the teammate to realize, wow, when there's a dividend, we all share in it. And we were fortunate in that first dividend was pretty sizable. The average amount was a little over $2,200 a person. And so I think that really, for a lot of teammates, helped make the program tangible, real, and created a lot of buy-in. And there were some really neat stories in terms of the impact that dividend had on people, right? Not just going out and spending it, but investing down payments on a house, or thinking about kids' future, or a lot of our teammates that have farms, and so what they could do relative to their farm. So I think that was a learning for sure. But along with that, we had a dividend where we just, I think it was the third one, we decided, hey, we're going to tell the team in advance that we've got a window of about 12 months before the next dividend, and how we perform, and we picked two metrics, quality and productivity. How we performed would determine that the scale of that dividend. And unfortunately, it did not have, on the whole, a great impact. And what we learned from that was, as we rolled that program out, we had metrics for the company that were going to help correlate to the dividend and tie it together. We didn't get it down to the individual group and team level, which in our case is teammates, groups of about 8 to 18 people, depending on the area. And it just didn't have the same impact. So it didn't hurt it, but it just didn't have the impact we'd hoped. And so the following year, we came out with a program that was on the same metrics, but it was by area, and it was measured weekly. We created a traveling trophy made out of garage door parts, and it had a massive impact because everybody wanted to win that trophy and display it. They wanted to be the winning team. I think we gave away some t-shirts and things like that too, and some lunches along with it. And it had a great impact. So I think that's what's key is not being afraid to try things with the program, recognizing that everybody's going to learn differently, and we might not get it right the first time, but the intent is there that we'll keep going after it and get to where the program lands with the team and it can really have, the impact that we want.
Yeah, and we've seen the power of pairing some of those short-term incentives alongside the longer-term pull of the equity.
Yep.
So let's fast forward to the sale. In 2022, C.H.I. was acquired by Nucor in what turned out to be a pretty tremendous outcome for all parties involved. We actually have some video of that, which we're going to share with everyone. So let's go ahead and watch that now. Let me share here.
Imagine you wake up on a random Wednesday in the middle of your life, and everything that you've ever wanted to do in your life, you can do now. All because you came to work and you did things the right way, and someone held up their word to you.
All right, this is a little different than when we normally get together. Anybody want to have an owners meeting?
We do have some news to share, and the news is we found a new owner for the business.
Pete Stavros is here. He is the co-head of the private equity firm KKR.
I mean, the performance of the company and the growth in value was astonishing. This is beyond our wildest dreams in terms of how well this business performed. It is a huge collection of lots of little things that the workforce did. Again, they did it. They earned it. Made this company more than triple, almost 4x their profits. And so shouldn't everyone participate? That's the simple philosophy.
So, logical question would be, what does this mean for you financially? Because you're all owners in this business. You guys ready to get into it? Yeah! Even our newest colleagues are going to get a meaningful payout of $20,000. Well, if you think that was good, hold on to your hats. If you joined last year, the payout is $40,000. So for this cohort, the payout is 1.5 times annual pay. So the average payout is $70,000 for this group.
I was shocked. I was standing next to my nephew who just started. I remember looking at him and hugging him and
This is 2.5 times your annual pay. 3.5 times, 4.5 times, 5.5 times your annual pay. For this last group, the payout is 6.5 times.
It's truly emotional. Like, I've never seen anything like that in my life.
The excitement,
the tears, the goosebumps, the just sheer excitement. Everybody was in shock, honestly.
First thing is we're prepaying for financial coaching for everyone. We want to make sure that you guys understand your payout, understand your tax situation, you know how to invest the money, and it gets put to the best use possible.
Still can't believe it. I mean, but it's good to know that you work for a good company and put your time in. They do help you out as well.
Where else have you seen this many men and women hugging, shaking, crying, sharing stories of how we started out here, what we do every day coming into this company to try to make it better for everybody.
It brings the extra oomph to every person that works, knowing that they're owners. The workmanship, you see everything's gone up. Just other companies need to do this.
Every cent that we get back, we earned.
I've never had anything like this happen to me in my entire life. This is life-changing for everything.
I wish that every company could see what this has done.
Every dream that I've ever had in my life, I can do now. It doesn't just change my life. It's going to change the whole community.
All right.
We're back. Graham, I can't watch that without getting a little emotional each time. And it's each time I watch it, I see a different teammate's face in the audience. And just think back to what that day meant. It was by far in my professional life the greatest day I've ever had. And I think it was made that way because of all the people in that room who worked so hard and came up with ideas and like we talked about, there's all these little things that built up, but to see the culmination of the team's efforts and all that come together that day was fantastic, and just an incredibly powerful experience that this ownership program enables.
Yeah. And I bet you've heard from many of your employees since then what this program has enabled for them in their lives. Any particularly powerful examples you can share of how this has shaped the employees' lives post payout?
Yeah, for sure. There's a variety of them. There's some charitable endeavors that folks have done. One of our teammates' family has always done different mission trips to help provide fresh drinking water into parts of Africa, and they were actually able to sponsor an entire well as a family, and so that was really meaningful to them. We had some teammates whose church had burned from a lightning strike. And they were able to, significantly help their church out. A whole bunch of stories about college, veterinary school, nursing school, and things like that are just heartwarming and just really help to perpetuate the impact that this ownership program has. As Josh, our teammate, says there at the end, it's wonderful for the families and everybody involved. And it's also substantial for the community, the impact it has. And we really see that in the area of the country we're in, where it is a smaller community, and what that can mean and what that opportunity is. So really, I think speaks to the power of the program, what it enables people to accomplish, and the reach it can have.
Absolutely. One concern we often hear from people about these programs is that if you give employees a big payout like that, are they just going to leave the company? So what has happened to turnover at C.H.I. since this payout?
I love this question. This one comes up a lot. We have had, let me start by saying this, to put it in our numbers perspective, because everyone's talking about turnover. Our turnover after the payout was lower than it was before. And everybody worries about who's going to make garage doors. And in fact, our attrition and pay, like I said, overall, the rates were way lower. And I would actually say that in the plant, we had even fewer people leave because I think it engenders a loyalty to the company and to the community and what we've been about. It also continued to bring the team closer together, right? Realizing that all those learnings and all that work paid off together has bonded people together, and they want to continue. So we lost virtually nobody from the plant. We did have some folks who retired early on the commercial side and moved on to do other things, and we certainly respect that. I mean, they made great contributions while we were there, and we're most grateful and we're supportive of that. But we've had, no disruption to the business in any way in terms of people saying, exodus or things like that. But it's a very common question. You're right. And I think it's hopefully as this movement continues to gain momentum and grow, people will realize that, people want to be part of something bigger. And this program enables that and really helps make businesses stronger for the long haul, not just for the time that it's owned in this format by the private equity firm.
Yeah. And I think the other important thing here is people will often leave if it's a crappy job. And if you do all the things that you're talking about to make it a good place to come into work, where they're connected to their teammates, where they're heard, where they have a say in what they're doing, that's going to last even once you get your payout and make it an exciting place to be.
For sure.
So how have you guys managed to perpetuate and maintain this ownership culture that you invested so much in a new setting now that you no longer have this private equity program in place?
Yeah, it's been really important. We said there's a longer version of that video you showed that's about 30 minutes long. And in my comments to the team as we wrapped up and as Pete had shared the great news was, this is a wonderful day, but nothing changes. This is our company and we are tasked with building it. It was given to us by the founders of the business and the people who grew it for the first 35 years, and it's ours to build for the next 40 plus for that community. And so we're very fortunate at C.H.I. to have joined Nucor. We couldn't have had a better match and a better forever home for the organization. Nucor is a Fortune 100 company, the world's greatest and safest steel maker, making the cleanest steel in the world. And it's been wonderful to see these cultures come together. They operate in a lot of small towns, just like we do. They have a lot of family members who work in the businesses, just like we do. And they believe in ownership in a different format. The format there as a publicly traded company is a very robust profit sharing program whereby 10% of EBIT is shared with teammates every year. There's also an opportunity to buy the stock and have a match on top of that, and a variety of other programs that help people own the stock and be owners in the company. So we continue today with our owners meetings. Those haven't changed. We talk about things obviously at a different level, but we've also benefited in a huge way being part of Nucor, both from a safety perspective. They've helped us continue the journey we'd started. At KKR, we made massive strides in reducing the recordables, and they've helped us get even better, which is really exciting to see all that work and groundwork that we laid around safety continue and get better, as well as raw materials. They supply our steel now, and so having that continuity for our biggest input and being able to collaborate with other divisions within Nucor around our raw materials has been really good for us and for our dealers. And so it's been a wonderful match, but we still call each other owners and think about it that way because we believe we're owners now in Nucor, and in turn then owners at C.H.I.
That's great. You guys have been able to keep it alive under the Nucor ownership. So we're nearing the end of the time here. We have a mix of different practitioners on this call, including potentially CEOs, GPs, LPs. So what would you say to any one of those groups who are skeptical that implementing this kind of scheme is worth the cost or the effort required to do it well?
I would say you need to get educated and ask the questions and do your diligence, right? I mean, like anything, there are so many options that CEOs confront in terms of programs, things that consultants want to bring in, of any number of ways, and there's so many pressures on CEOs for different things to consider in terms of optimizing the performance of the business. For me, this is the ultimate program because it creates alignment throughout the organization, and this isn't something that you're just going to roll out and it's going to take care of itself. This is something just like any strategy that you've got to work at the execution of every single day. But as I said before, it encompasses every part of the business, right? Being an owner means you have to touch every part of the business. Mm-hmm. And the more people collectively invested and working, given the stake in the game that they have, the better the business can perform. So I think you need to do diligence and ask the questions. I think you need to be prepared for the journey that this is, right? It's not a light switch that you can flip on. This is a journey, but it's the absolute ultimate tool to optimizing the performance of a business, from the safety performance, from the commercial performance to talent and recruiting, to initiatives around ESG or DEI. The ownership program touches it all, and it really ties it all together and gives everybody a common ground to work from for the betterment of the enterprise. And then I think as you get to that point and that realization of the power of this program, you got to make sure that you're able to bring the management team along in terms of making sure everybody's there and invested and committed to communicating this and to taking this out. Because again, it's not a roll it out and it'll run itself. It takes work at all levels of the organization to be communicating and to help make sure that people are on board. And then I think once you're committed and you got the team on board and you roll it out, you got to remember that element of flexibility, right? There's plenty of things. I mentioned the one on the dividend and the lunch game, where we had a learning in kind of both directions. You got to be flexible in how you think about the program. We had some unique circumstances relative to prior ownership groups and what that meant for our team that we had to address when we rolled it out. For a company that's maybe been privately held its entire existence, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. And so understanding where your business is at and flexible in terms of how you approach the rollout and how the ongoing execution of it plays out is really important. And then you mentioned OW earlier and Ownership Works, and it's a tremendous resource. The team there is super talented and has just so much passion around this that I think that's an amazing resource to tap into for companies. And then, there's a network, as you said, of us out there who have been through this and are believers, and don't hesitate to reach out because we're happy to talk to anybody anytime about this program. We believe in it and we just know it works, and we want to help be a part of growing it going forward in any way we can.
Absolutely. Happy to talk about the program. Happy to make connections to Ownership Works. If anyone needs that, both Dave and I work closely with them. So thank you, Dave. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed hearing more about what you guys did at CHI. Always love rewatching the video of the exit like you. I enjoy it every time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, everybody.